We will call to order the Wednesday, November 16th, 2016 meeting of the Mendocino County Civil Service Commission. Roll call.
Commissioner Pacheco, absent by prior arrangement. Commissioner Ornstein.
Here.
Commissioner Feth Michelle.
Here.
Commissioner Harden.
Present.
Chair Poplawski.
Here. Okay. The agenda item number 2, approval of the minutes of October 19th, 2016. Do we have a motion for that?
All mosh.
Okay, and a second.
I'll second.
Okay, do we have any corrections or discussion of those minutes? If not, all in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll abstain.
You abstain, okay. 3 ayes and 1 abstention. Okay, agenda item number 3, public expression. Not much of an audience today. So we'll move on to agenda item number 4, classification, specification, modification, and reclassification.
A lot of shuns.
Yeah, we have a library today, a couple of items for the library. The first one is branch librarian.
Good morning. I'm going to be presenter and secretary today.
Oh, okay.
I'll try to keep my two hats separated. So you have before you a recommendation that the branch librarian classification be modified to provide a person with no MLS degree to function as a branch librarian. You'll recall it in 2014, we had a similar classification of library branch manager that you adopted with the MLS and non-MLS. And that was not implemented due to several unforeseen factors. And moving the branch librarian to an MLS or non-MLS allows the library, the 5 stations, the 5 different libraries to be filled with a branch librarian, and acknowledges the fact that it's very difficult sometimes to, in the remote areas especially, to fill positions with people that already have their MLS, that they're willing to come here. And this is an option that allows them to be acknowledged as running the branch, and gives them the option of getting the MLS as they're doing the job. They would work under more close supervision of the library director, because there is a professional aspect to the library services and referencing. But this would allow for that.
So this is not a new classification, it's just changing the specs.
Right, yeah, it's modifying the existing branch librarian to allow for non-MLS.
Just curious, how many of the libraries we have, how many have a librarian, a head librarian? That's not really branch librarian.
5, all 5 of them. Well, of the 5, the 2 that I'm going to be addressing later as the reclassification are currently not branch librarians. But the Willits, Fort Bragg, and Ukiah has a branch librarian. I believe that there's at least 1 vacancy right now, which they are actually having a difficult time filling. They had a list, and I believe she made 3 job offers, and they were all declined. So now she's looking at how do I fill my position when the people that have the MLS are declining the job offer. And so the end result, if the reclassifications that we'll talk about in a moment are approved, then it would basically be that all 5 of the branches would have a branch librarian providing the oversight of the.
And then the 2 library associates, we would take action to,
Yes, if that's approved, that would be the recommendation, is that they be reclassified. Currently Covelo and Point Arena. I guess I'm kind of moving into that part of it, but that's okay.
Well, it's all related.
It's all
It seems
related,
like it's
yeah.
all related,
Yeah.
yeah.
In 2014, when we went with the branch library manager, and that did not, well, like I said earlier, was not implemented. At that time, it was that the 5 branches do function the same. They all have the same aspects. They might have more or less patronship. They might have more or less programs, but the necessity that somebody's in charge, that somebody's supervising staff, managing their branch's budget and their programs and whatnot, that all is the same throughout the 5 branches.
Okay, could we have a motion to approve the proposed modification of the branch librarian class?
so moved.
Second?
Second.
I do have just one
Sure.
question to Johnny, and I noticed as far as the 3 years under, you're going to give them 3 years to get their appropriate degree. Is that norm with the other?
No, I think the norm is about 12 to 18 months, depending upon, the maybe the motivation or the ability of the person getting it. It also may be dependent upon classes being offered or perhaps not being offered due to lack of enrollment. And so 2 years would be the norm, and 3 years adds that extra cushion in case something does go on that is not in control of the incumbent. And the language in there that the HR director would review it on a case-by-case would be the difference between that person who just sat around for 3 years and then said, oh, I guess I was supposed to do this, versus that person who's been working on it and maybe does have an issue with that last remaining class not being offered, or something else that's out of their control that kept them from getting it within the 3-year time.
And this is most likely a master's degree would be an online endeavor? I don't.
Probably in most
Sonoma
cases
State.
around here, and yeah, I think Sonoma State offers it. so.
Okay, just curious. Yeah. Okay.
Before we go on, this last motion, isn't it a 2-part motion that we,
Yes.
Yes, you'll.
and that we take?
The first motion was to modify the class spec,
Yeah.
and it's got a motion and a second.
I thought we'd do one at a time.
I thought we were doing it all together. Do you want 2 separate motions?
Well, they are listed, A and B, so.
Yeah, I think we should do them separately.
Okay,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, so moved. I moved on the first recommendation
Right.
to
Seconded.
to adopt the
Okay,
proposed
any further
modification.
discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving the modification of the branch librarian classification, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Okay, so now we will talk about B.
Yes, the
Which-
2 incumbents at Point Arena and Covelo are functioning in the same manner as the Fort Bragg Willets and Ukiah branch librarians, and we would like to reclassify them accordingly. One of the incumbents currently has her master's degree, and the other does not. I
Well.
believe the affected bargaining unit mentioned yesterday that he has spoken to the staff, and this director has spoken to the staff as well. Nobody's here to speak on their behalf, but they often don't come unless they are concerned or one of those people that really wants to get up and really speak out for themselves. So it's not uncommon for people not to show up.
Okay. Could we have a motion for the reclassification of the positions in Point Arena and Covelo to branch librarian?
I'll move.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay. it's been second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimous as well. So that is for agenda item number 4. Agenda item number 5, Civil Service Rule Amendment Adoption. Adoption of the Civil Service Rules Amendment per discussion and approval of our last meeting.
And actually, I'm pulling this item or continuing it. We are still in discussions with one of the bargaining units, and we did have a
Okay.
recommendation that we clarify some of the language at the very bottom of subpoena that's more clear, that if the subpoena is objected by the appellant or the department, that it would come to you for hearing, and that if a subpoena once issued, the person who received the subpoena could object, and that would be heard at the actual hearing. And I thought it was clear, but I recognize when we were talking that it's clear when you're involved in writing it, but when you're trying to interpret it, it's not quite so clear. So we'll be modifying that slightly and continuing our talks with the bargaining unit and bring it back either in December or January, if that's
Well,
what it takes.
wait a minute. What you're saying is that if a subpoena is issued by the commission, that the recipient of the subpoena can refuse to accept it?
No, they can object.
Object.
It's typically like if you're in a court hearing, and if somebody objected, they would to a subpoena, they would do it at the beginning of a hearing, and they would hear whether or not it's going to be overruled or
Yeah,
sustained.
well, I wasn't, is that normal? I wasn't aware that a subpoena could be objected to. I mean, it's not like you can object to a testimony or something, but I mean, if someone needs to come and present evidence because the governing, the adjudicating body needs the information, how can you refuse a subpoena?
You can't refuse, but you can object, and then the party, decides whether the objection is being sustained or
Which party?
Well,
The issuing party.
the issue, the commission in the case of commission meetings, the courts in the case of courts.
And that's normal.
It is a process. I don't know how normal it is, but it is a process.
Wow.
I mean, people
That
can have
exists.
all kinds of extenuating circumstances in their life that,
I
But they
suppose.
physically have to show, I mean, the
Subpoena.
idea of the
Yes.
subpoena is that they're subpoenaed to either cooperate and answer questions and participate in the discovery, or they're subpoenaed to come in front of whatever body is the subpoena. So I can, if they have to physically show up and say, I object to the subpoena, I can see how that could be effective if you're asking them to present themselves in front of the body who subpoenaed them. But if you've subpoenaed them to say you have to answer these questions, do the discovery process, and then they don't, then how does that affect, because they've object to it?
Then there would have to be a hearing for the commission to hear the objection.
Oh, so we would hear the
Objection.
objection, and then they'd go back and do their discovery, and then they'd come back to do the hearing.
Yeah,
Interesting.
in the worst case scenario, that kind of a situation would delay things.
Yeah.
But in the best case scenario, it's resolved, easily or quickly, and
Yeah, I was,
But if they appear to say, I don't want to appear, they've already appeared. I mean,
but you haven't forced them to answer questions or forced them
right.
to
The
respond.
objections would be handled
I
in
don't know. I'm not an
advance of
attorney.
hearing the evidence.
so I assume that you checked this out with legal counsel.
Yeah, as you had requested, Mr. Rapport actually drafted the language on the subpoena issuance, and that's what you had requested at the meeting, that he draft language and that we post it. And, so this is language that he drafted. The only part that we're trying to clarify is the part where it says, at the hearing, the commission shall consider and decide whether the subpoena should be issued or enforced before the hearing and the evidence offered by the parties. And they felt like that part of it is separate from the top part of whether there's objections to prior to the commission issuing subpoena. That those two need to be separated a bit.
Well, not really, because the hearing is about whether or not the subpoena should be issued.
No, what I mean to say is, if there's an objection to a subpoena, then there will be a hearing about the objections to the subpoena before they're issued. If there's no objections, then the chair or the vice chair will be able to issue the subpoena without the whole commission. The whole commission would only be involved, and there would be a hearing about it if there's an objection before subpoena is issued. So what's also written in here is that the person who is subpoenaed can object, and it's written in there, and they're both in there, but the discussion is that they need to be slightly separated so that it's clear,
Right.
more clear that
Not confused.
there can be objections by the two parties, meaning the appellant and the department, prior to the commission issuing the subpoena. And there could be an objection after by the people who are subpoenaed. And that would be done at the beginning of the hearing before evidence is presented. And that says that now.
Interesting.
They just want it separated a bit so it's a little bit more clear.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. That makes
Well,
Do it
Google
again.
says you can object to a subpoena, so.
Google says.
Google says you can.
Yeah.
And there's steps on how to do it. but-
Right, and and that's what, David wrote in, and that's what David wrote into this.
It'd be easier for you to go into hiding if you see the process server come at you.
Right.
Yeah, okay, we're learning.
Okay,
something.
So we're
Okay.
only doing the
So-
discussion part, we're not asking for adoption part
Okay.
today.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, glad we got that settled.
And if there's nothing further, I guess we'll move on to the
Okay.
next.
Agenda item number 6, employee organization. They are not here. So, Human Resource Director report is item number 7.
Okay, so last meeting, we had, I talked about the training, and Commissioner Fifth Michelle asked for some statistics. And so I wanted to, for 2016, we had the county offered 23 trainings, and we filled 794 seats. And that's on average attendance on average of about 34 people per session.
Wow.
And the trainings ranged from Excel and Adobe, business writing skills, customer service, workplace harassment, performance evaluations, conflicts resolution. So there's
Now,
quite
these,
an array.
these are current employees who are
Yes,
getting
these
this
are current
training?
employees.
It's a
And,
great program.
yeah.
And does that include the Liebert Cassidy trainings that
No,
you-
this is just
That's just internally
separate from.
prepared. Wow.
Mhm. This is
Wow.
in addition to that
Good job.
employee
Good job.
relations
Yeah.
consortium.
And this is
Yeah.
through the college, a lot of.
Most of them have been offered through the college. I think as time goes on, they may not all be offered through the college, but I'm pretty sure all of these, well, not all of these went through the college. There's a couple, like the HPL Leadership Development, that was county sponsored. It wasn't through the college, but.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for getting back to us.
And then also, I wanted to talk a little bit about December meeting. The meeting in December is the 21st. And I wanted to poll to see if we felt there was going to be a quorum for the 21st. And if not, would like you to consider that we will cancel the regular meeting and schedule a special meeting on the 14th, which is the Wednesday before the regular meeting.
Well, so I had on my calendar, don't we have a hearing in December?
No, we have a special meeting, hearing November 28th, or 29th and 30th.
November 29th.
It's coming up
Okay.
next,
Okay.
week after
That's what
next.
I
All right.
had on
And then
the-
we have one scheduled for January.
Okay. So I will not be here on the regularly scheduled meeting of the 21st. I'll be out of the country.
I will be out of the country all of December practically, so.
Everybody's on the lam,
Yeah, and I'm
avoiding subpoenas. is
Yeah,
what-
we're avoiding subpoenas. I'm flying on the 15th, so the 14th would be very difficult for me.
Well, we're going to have 2 meetings, it seems, in November, the end of November. Maybe it's not, we're not going to miss anything if we skip December and take the month
Well,
off.
It does depend on items. We do have items sometimes that, that we.
It's the holiday season. Give it a
I
rest.
understand, which is why I'm trying to do a December 14th meeting. I know it jams in with the special hearing at the end of this month. It jams you in pretty tight, because it would just be a month from now that we'd be doing the regular meeting. And, if we, or the special meeting, if we do that, obviously, or not obviously, but what we would do is look at, if it turns out that in December 14th that there are no items, that we would, cancel it. But I do know right now we are working on something that they are hopeful that they will have for a December meeting. And when we were looking at the calendar and saw that it was the 21st, that's why I wanted
Right.
to talk today about.
Well, just for the record, I would
about-
be available, not happily, but I would be available.
On both those, on the 14th or the 21st?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be okay with the 21st. I know things are piling up on the 14th because it's the holiday. But I
Yeah.
think the only thing I really have is the Labor Council, which is in the evening, so.
Okay, so you could do the 14th
I
if you
think I
had
could,
to.
yeah.
Yeah, I have a council meeting that night at 6:30, so, if it's a long meeting here, we could have a problem.
And I don't necessarily anticipate that.
Yeah,
I just know
I-
that there's some items that we were
Right.
asked to get completed into the commission before the end of the year, so.
So I could, I can't, I have to be in Napa on the 14th at 11:30, and then I fly out on the 15th, so I can't, the
Okay.
14th won't work for me either.
All right, I will check with Commissioner Pacheco, and we'll have to go from there. Okay,
So for agenda item number 8, I understand that we are not having the closed session.
we are having the closed session.
We have all- we have
Oh,
these
but,
other
and I
three.
just,
Oh, we are having one? Oh,
Yeah.
we have more than the hearing?
yeah,
on
well,
the back.
it's on the back, I think,
Oh.
yeah. And one more thing on the HR Director's report, Ms. Dunham asked me just to let you know that they have begun contract negotiations with one of the bargaining units, the attorney group, and that they'll have some more contracts that they'll be doing in the spring. Okay,
Okay,
so I think that's all.
so where are we going?
We're going to go over to
adjourn
B,
B?
conference room B.
Conference room B,
Right.
okay,
Where's that one?
right there. where we usually-
It's by the bathrooms.
And the CEO, this way.
It doesn't.
Yeah, you make
Yeah,
a left
A is
and a
over
right.
there.
No.
C is
B is
over
over here.
That's right.
The alphabet
I know, my
meeting.
goodness.
Okay, so we will adjourn the session to closed session, this meeting.
So where are you going in December?
November 16th, Civil Service Commission meeting to open session and report out on the closed session. We had to consider the extension of probations for 3 different employees, and all of the extensions were approved unanimously. And that brings us to agenda item number 9. No, 10. We just did 9, which is adjournment.
That's right, okay.
Okay? So it is 10:03, right?
Okay. I gotta re-up.
Thank you.
You're gonna re-up for what?